What up, and welcome back to the podcast, everybody. This podcast is brought to you, as always, by Anchor, as well as Good Problems. I got the co-founder on the pod with me today, Nick Rinaldi. Say what's up.
Hey, how's it going, Rambles listeners? Welcome back. Happy to be here, bro.
At this point, it feels like I do like a quarterly review for this team. I'm just very bad at being consistent with this, as you know. But we got stuff to talk about. Let's say, starting with I want to start on the high note first of all, because the Knicks have had some up and downs this year, and I was just basically taking a look at everything from January, um, and the Knicks were 7-8 in January. I'm pretty sure I did that counting right, and that was on the backs of R.J. Barrett and Evan Fournier. I would love to hear your input on it. I got the stats they averaged that month right here. 21.8 points, 3.2 assists, 6 rebounds, 43.6 from the field, 40.2 from three, and 68% from free throw for RJ. We know he always struggled with that though. And then Evans got 15.7 points on 46.7 from the field and 45.7 from three on 7.5 attempts. Really came alive in January, and really impressive, but it's a shame because, and we'll get to this in a minute, but the trade deadline's coming up, and I think he's gone. But let's talk about the good that they're doing for now, and then we'll get to that.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Start talking about RJ. The our draft pick, our lottery pick, and it's year three. Expectations were high coming into the season, and early on, he had that stretch of about 6 or 7 games where I think he averaged like 27 a game or something along those lines, and that was a bit exciting. But then running into a little bit of injuries, COVID, he was ill with a non-COVID related illness. Was a bit of concern. Is there maybe a regression happening here for a guy maybe in his like junior year slump, instead of a sophomore slump? But January, he's been playing like the guy we want him to play. He's been a lot more aggressive going downhill, making plays for his teammates. Defensively, although he's not, a top defensive player in the league, he's competent to guard some guys anywhere between the 1 and the 3, depending on their size at the 3. And one thing that's stuck out to me about his play has really been his leadership abilities among the Julius Randle controversy, which has been going on right now. Where we've seen Julius, our leader, based on his talent and his skills and what he did last year. Not setting a great example based on his body language and his on the court actions, and not talking to the media. And we've seen this 21-year-old, step up to the plate and show, quite a opposite demeanor. And I think that has been the most exciting takeaway for me. I just want to say, I think last year he was averaged about 17 a game in terms of scoring, which was obviously an upgrade from his rookie numbers of 14. And I think going into the season, people wanted to look at certain leaps like Tatum, and maybe, even though they're in the same draft class, Ja Morant now, who's taken like a 6.7 point per game leap. I don't think with RJ that's realistic. Again, this team doesn't have a point guard right now. And, for a while, Tibbs doesn't run a lot of the offensive sets through RJ. January, he has been doing that, which has been great. But we're seeing, what his potential could be. And the game is just slowing down for him a little bit. And I think a leap he'll take, is, maybe he'll slowly start to average, 2 to 3 more points per game each year. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends this season averaging below 20 points per game. But if he averages like 19, that's an improvement for me. That's proof that he is making improvements and strides. And he's the youngest guy on the team still. And he got drafted 2 years ago. So that's something to be considered. That's the brightest spot. We don't know what his potential could be, but seeing that our lottery pick is not, someone who will falter under pressure or doesn't lack ability to be a top player in this league is really refreshing to see.
Yeah, for sure. I wanted to basically I got to piggyback off of that essentially, and seeing how RJ's handled the media, he's handled all the criticism from this season too. You saw the video of that one fan that called him out at the game, and he's like, "You're watching me, right? Shut the fuck up."
Yeah.
And RJ early on was really, really struggling. Still decent scoring, but the efficiency wise and just confidence wise, he didn't really look all there. He had that one brief stretch early in the season where he looked like the hero, like he took the leap right then and there. Then he had a bad stretch of horrible shooting, and he had those turnover things the other day, a few weeks back. But yeah, love that he's taken the I guess initiating the leap through the month of January. Love that he's aggressive. And I think we've talked about this before, where like I always considered RJ and Julius kind of like similar. They're a similar style of player. I mean, granted, it's cliche because they're both lefty, but RJ I think is best kind of like you said, attacking downhill and just being the initiator, being the aggressor, and he's clearly proven that that makes sense. He's also been doing better from the perimeter because he's being set up better and he's more confident in his shot. I don't. Was it January that he hit the buzzer beater too? Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's a big shot to make in your career as a third year player, 21 years old. But, whether it was a good shot or not is a different story. He fucking made it, and that's a big shot to be making in your career, and especially after such an up and down season. So seeing him take those strides to be the leader essentially, and essentially it's also looking like he's kind of like forcing the narrative on Julius Randle, like everybody kind of wants Julius gone now, and it's unfortunate because he was basically the king and had the keys to the city in the palm of his hand last year. But I'm not mad that RJ's stepping up, and that's good. That's what we need. And I mean, I don't remember what he was averaging early on, but he's brought himself back up to the points per game average that he had pretty much from last year. And he's as long as he continues scoring like he has been, I mean, he's been the team scorer, leading scorer on a few nights this year. So if he keeps that up, I don't see why he can't get to that 18, 19 you're talking about, which is already an improvement, even though it came from the beginning of the season, which was really poor play from him. It showed that he grew out of it essentially. So I'm really heavily aboard the RJ train, as you know, because I got that jersey.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I was really happy to be able to snag one of those NBA 75th anniversary clean white jerseys from the MSG store, the RJ edition. Yeah, I mean, I wrote about this. I think it was the Kings recap game because they won the game, but I think he had like 11 points and like he didn't really have a good shot selection. That sometimes you'll see these like rookie flashbacks that RJ has where like he just plays like his rookie self when there was like really nobody on the team. Like Randall was on the team, but he was like not the Randall of last year. Not with the expectations. He'll just play some ugly ball, and what you don't want to see is him to get into that sort of rhythm. And I think we've seen instances where he's played really well, and then we'll see him play like that regressed rookie RJ, like multiple games in a row, and that's not a good habit to get into. 6-7 games, and a lot of that comes from maybe a bit of overconfidence when he's like on a hot streak, and his shot selection just becomes a bit more poor, or I don't know what it is, but you just want to hope that like every guy's gonna have an off game, but when he has an off game, he's able to rebound a lot quicker, and I think that's a real sense of maturity I'd like to see. I mean, I think he had 11 against Sacramento. He did not shoot or play well. He had 11 points, shot 4 of 14, and then he had 23 points against Memphis, which, like, you want to see that response against a team like Memphis that's good. Like, you're okay with RJ having a poor game against a game like the Kings. He only played like 17 minutes, but to come against Morant, play 23 points, play consistent defense, that's what I'm talking about. Like, he was able to rebound quick and then, drop 20 plus. So that's just definitely an improvement, I think. And I think at its core, the game is slowing down for him. Like, he's not really making these rash decisions all the time, and he's able to see the floor a bit better. And I mean, look, he's got to work on free throw shooting. That's no secret, but that comes with time in the gym, which you hope this summer is something that's nailed in. I think the free throw shooting is a symptom of a bigger issue, which is the team not being focused at all. So, I feel like that kind of like spreads like like a pandemic, knock on wood. But yeah, I think I'm definitely proud to see him make some progress, and that's a lot of the reason why I want to make the playoffs. I think realistically, what are we really going to do with the playoffs with this team? But I want to see how he can come up. I'd love to see a big RJ playoff game where like he drops 30 plus and we win because of him. That is real progress there. It's like, okay, here's our draft lottery pick making that move. I doubt I'm the only one in that boat.
For sure. You're definitely not. But this does kind of bring us to an interesting topic, which is the trade deadline coming up in the next 5 days. As we all know now, as of February 3rd, Julius Randle's eligible for trade. I'm not saying I want to trade him. I would love to see him really break out of this, whatever it is that he's experiencing. I mean, I wrote down a few of the instances this year. He's not been doing the pressers after games, losses most notably. He gave the thumbs down to the fans, which I think you and I were on the same boat with. Like, who gives a shit? I'm cool with it if he's giving the fans a thumbs down for booing him, even though they're winning. There's that whole rumored unfollow on Instagram now. He shut down Mark Berman the other day. There's drama building up. Because you mentioned playoffs. Right now, the Knicks are 24-28 ahead of the Lakers game tonight, I'm pretty sure. And 24-28, they're just barely outside the play-in qualification. But the East is just big time right now, man. There's teams that are like the Hawks and Celtics that started off slumpy as well, and they're kind of just building their way up the standings. And I don't know what's to come of the Knicks come the trade deadline. There's speculation that there will be a trade. There's speculation that there won't be a trade. We have 5 days to figure out, really. And we saw what happened with the Clippers yesterday and the Blazers. The Blazers who sent 2 of their wings for scraps, essentially, and they're kind of tanking the season, essentially. And I think, I don't remember offhand how many games the Knicks have until the trade deadline. Derrick Rose should be coming back soon. There's a lot to ponder here, because I would also like to make the playoffs again after last year. The expectations were high coming in. I tried to not keep them too high, but getting back to the postseason and being consistent for a change would be nice. And then obviously we know the Knicks are at where they're at right now, and I would like to see a turnaround. But how that happens, that's up to debate. But yeah, please feel free to share your stance on this whole trade deadline and drama and whatnot.
So I think the deadline is it's the 11th. Is it Friday or is it Thursday? I think it's Friday. I don't know the time, the deadline.
Today is Saturday. It is the 5th. Hold on, I'm checking the calendar. Friday is the 11th.
Okay, so it's on that day. So the Knicks play. We're at the Lakers tonight, at Utah Monday, at Denver Tuesday. Whoever gave us that back-to-back is just cruel. And then at Golden State on Thursday. So that's a pretty brutal stretch, with tonight probably being the most winnable game since LeBron's not even playing.
Mm-hmm. And we beat the Lakers before without LeBron.
We did. Now
I don't know if Davis was there though.
He was. Yeah, he was there. Briefly, he did not play well. Now that'll be an interest. That's a sidebar that can be discussed. That I'm excited to see in terms of Mitchell Robinson matching up with Davis tonight, based on his play recently. But in regards to the deadline, it's very interesting. Like Leon Rose is kind of operating behind closed doors, and we don't really know what to expect from him. I mean, draft picks, I think him and the rest of the front office, Brock Aller, and there's another guy, a crucial member of the front office in terms of the drafting decisions. They've done great. Quickly, the top end pick was obviously dependent on probably not signing Randall not having the season he did last year, but the Quentin Grimes pick seems to be a home run at the place you got him. Deuce McBride is cooking in the G League. The NBA is a different game, but it seems pretty clear that with minutes, he's competent enough to play in the NBA. So I think this is a crucial moment for them in terms of, what's their plan going forward, because there's clearly some issues right now that are pretty clear. Number one, the Knicks lack point guard play completely. They don't have someone who can run the pick and roll effectively. And I actually think that's where Randall is used best, not in these like ISO mellow ball situations, but being the roll man and attacking the rim, going downhill when there's one defender on him. Many times, he's cut off because he's attracting all these doubles and it forces him into bad decisions. I think Kemba was effective in doing that, but I think he's getting to the end of his career, honestly. It's sad to say, but he doesn't look like, he can run an NBA offense like he used to. And I think, that's the biggest thing you want to diagnose. The Alec Burks experiment is done. He's not a point guard, and I think, if you are making a move, that should be your move you want to make. But at the same time, like I said and tweeted, I could see them standing pat and not doing anything and just riding this team out to the offseason and wondering, last year, I think we won like 18 of our last 22 games or like something like that. And we got the 4th seed, like who's to say, yes, we got a tough schedule. Well, who's to say, the last 20 games we get it together, win 16 of our last 4 and crack one of those seeds, I think in terms of the play-in, we're a game behind. I think in terms of the 6th seed, I mean, we're only like 4.5 games behind. Anything can really happen, and I feel like making a rash decision like trading Randall or trading Fournier, guys you gave money to this summer, doesn't reflect well on not only the front office, but the direction and the culture this team's trying to go in. But if there are moves to be made, I would love to clear up a rotation spot for Reddish. I don't know, you give a first round pick up for him, albeit it was the Charlotte pick, you still give up a first round pick. And I don't know, what the plan is for him this season. If no moves are made at the deadline, how are you going to fit him into that rotation? And then you're dealing with one more year next year and you got to determine after that year of play, whether you got to pay him. And he has been consistently kind of hurt. So I think you want to maximize how much time you can play Reddish, and that should be our priority. And I think Alec Burks has been great for us, but I think it's time to move on and see what you can get from him. I would love to I think you can get a first round pick for him if possible, from maybe the Lakers or I'm trying to think of any team that's really in the market to maybe buy, maybe Dallas if they want to even get an extra guy. There could be a couple teams I'm not considering that could be open to that. But yeah, I think, in terms of moves to be made, Randall's been on in the rumor mill. There's a lot of talks about him for Fox, which would be an interesting move because then there's the Knicks going full youth movement with Fox at the helm, making $30 million. But again, I think De'Aaron Fox is like 24, so he's younger than Randall and different play. Like he's a pure point guard, and he's not a small guard either. He's 6'3". So I think to sum up my point here, I don't think the Knicks are going to make any moves. Do I want them to make some moves? I've always been full youth movement. I love the season we had last year, but in a way, I love it just being a fan. It was nice to watch winning after 7 years in a row losing. But I think in a lot of ways, it might have been better for us to even just play like okay last year, or even maximize Randall's value and trade him and go full in on the youth movement. I think that's the way we have to develop. Randall's 27 and he's like a third option, but he's our best player. That's you cap a ceiling on yourself there. So would I like to see them move him? In ways, yeah. I want to see, if he's going to, have this poor energy and play for us, maybe it's me giving up on a guy, but, again, it's a what have you done for me lately type of league. And it's not even that he's playing poorly. It's that he doesn't even look like he wants to play here. He won't even pick up his teammates off the ground. I as a fan, I just don't have time to root for that man. I don't mean to disrespect you or your family at all. Just get off my team. If he can pick it up, if the front office has more trust in him, I'm all for it. But at the same time, I think long term, they're looking for 2023. They want to ride out this year. I think Fournier doesn't get traded because now he's playing like we expect him to, which is great to see. And I like him here. I think he does like playing on this team, which is awesome. And then I think this year finishes 2023. You got cap space to clear up, and you got some free agents. So I think 2023 is when they're going to make moves, if any. And maybe that's Leon's long-term plan. But I don't know if any moves are going to happen here. If they do, I hope they're the right ones. I mean, the front office has been good thus far. I did like the Reddish trade, but we got to just see. what they're gonna do with him. I just don't know what they're gonna do yet.
Yeah, I mean, we're not behind closed doors, not behind the scenes, obviously, so we're never gonna know. Everything that everybody, like even the talking heads like us and a lot of Knicks Twitter, they think they know what's gonna happen. They have their thoughts of, hey, maybe this trade will work, this will work, this makes sense, this makes sense. Nobody knows. Nobody knows a goddamn thing. Um, as for the references to Randall for Fox, that has been growing and building steam. We don't know if it's going to happen. But does it make sense for the Knicks? Yes, because I feel that it fills a gaping hole that the Knicks have had for the worst half of 3 decades.
Years.
Like the last good consistent point guard I think the Knicks had was Raymond Felton.
It really was Felton.
And I mean they had him for 3 seasons, all of 3 seasons.
Oh.
They had him the 1 year that they drafted him or whatever. Then they traded him to Denver for Melo. Then they get him back, and it's like, Raymond Felton was the only good point guard in 30 years. Stephon Marbury had a nice little run here. I didn't really follow the Knicks then. I want to say Chris Duhon because of his 22 assist game, but really he did nothing. Like all I've heard about Chris Duhon is he was a joke. Jeremy Lin had Linsanity for like a 20-game stretch, and then he kind of fizzled out, and they got rid of him. There was never a floor general. There has not been a floor general on this team, and the closest we came to it was probably Derrick Rose from last year, because look what happened with him. Yeah. He's playing all year off the bench. He specifically asked to be traded to a team with playoff future and got to New York. And what did he do? He went on to put the goddamn team on his back. And then he wound up starting in the playoffs for us and doing incredibly well for a guy in his 30s coming off of a horrible injury-plagued career. So, I mean, that's got to amount for something. Like that's got to be a motivational factor for this team. And then look at where we're at now. So trading for a point guard in De'Aaron Fox, whether he can shoot three-pointers or not, I'm cool with it in a way, because maybe it's just he's even had a bit of a slump, I think, at least from what I've been reading and hearing. But if you swap the two of Randall and Fox, let's say Randall goes to a team that could also use some, power forwards and front court help, and then they're log jammed at the point guard position to begin with. So then Fox gets to come over here, ride out his next 5 seasons of like 30-something million a year in the Mecca. And he's a highlight reel. He can make more highlights with Obi Toppin at his side. Maybe Cam Reddish running alongside him, RJ Barrett, Mitch Robinson. I think it would be a healthy swap, personally. But then you don't know what happens from there, I guess. And as for clearing up space for Reddish, I would also like to see Reddish play, because I think he actually has something to give. I was checking his stats earlier this season, and this is the best year he's had for the Hawks so far. Ever since that game against the Bucks, where he kind of just started cooking from 3, like he could shoot. He just needs the time. It's just like Knox in a way. Kevin Knox and Cam Reddish are not that different to a degree. So like clearing up some time for him would be nice. I would like to see him come off the bench for a lot more minutes. But that would require, as you said, like maybe getting rid of a Burks or something like that. And who knows if that happens? Like you said, come Friday, we'll know, unless something happens prior. And really, we have no semblance of what that will be.
I think, honestly, it's more likely Harden gets traded to Philly than the Knicks to trade Randall at this point. I think it also looks better on the front office. You just signed a guy for, the near max based on what he did for you last year. And like, they're trying to build a culture here. And I really hope they are focused on the long term for that, because establishing the culture for the Knicks to be taken seriously, I think is really vital for us as a franchise going forward. It's been sort of 20 years of perpetual, tomfoolery. And I think, establishing this culture where it's like, you trust in your guys, even if they're the skill of Julius Randle, to, give them another chance if they're having a poor year this year. Maybe give them one more chance next year. I'm not against that, but, I can't blame myself as a fan to be frustrated to watch these almost perpetual 4 or 5 turnover games where the guy doesn't know how to react in a double team. I mean, it's just frustrating, and I want to root for the guy. I want him to be our leader. I want him to, go off and stuff. But
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know what's gotten into his head. I think a lot of it. I mean, if you look at it, and I know myself as a 26-year-old, he's 27. Like, he's a year older than me. So, like, I think that aspect of things is really tough. Just managing, like, living or playing for the New York Knicks and being under the spotlight and knowing you're not a number one guy, but people are angry at you for you not living up to that potential when that's not who you are, and that's okay.
Yeah.
He's still a competent all-star level player, but it's really the attitude and the body language which has really been off-putting. And I'm not gonna act like I'm the body language expert, but he just doesn't. There was times where you just didn't see him pick up his teammates and just dap them up, and it's like, that is being a poor teammate. That is selfish. Like, it doesn't take anyone to read between the lines there and see that, like, that comes from some selfish decision making. So those are just my thoughts on Randall. I think we'll keep him. I think maybe Derrick Rose coming back, will be helpful for him.
Yeah, it could heal some stuff.
And maybe the jumper starts falling a little bit more in the second half, and we can see what kind of noise we can make in the playoffs. But there's a clear cap on this team again, and you got to just think the front office, if no moves are made this trade deadline, every year the Knicks fans want a big deadline move. And the last 2 years, like, we have made moves. Like, we traded Marcus Morris for a first-round pick, who we turned in quickly. We traded for Derrick Rose last year. So these aren't massive moves, but they're pretty significant moves. And I think, if they stand pat this year, maybe the Reddish trade is their move this year. You never know. But again, I don't know how you're going to find minutes for him. Like, I'm trying to pull up the stats right now. I'm actually working on, like, a data visualization for this. I'm having a bit of trouble on Basketball Reference right now, but I think if based on, if you just sort by the minutes played for Cam Reddish,
right?
For some reason I'm having a little trouble using the Basketball Reference selector.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at the games where he's played 25 minutes or over, for the most part, his scoring averages are above 15 a game. I'll try to have those numbers before the end of the podcast because it's interesting, but it reinforces the argument that the more playing time this guy gets, his performance is actually better.
Yeah, he's shown many a time that he could actually be a reliable player. It's just a matter of getting those minutes, like you said, and between injuries and whatnot, and then other guys stepping up for Atlanta, it's been rough.
Yeah.
And then obviously here now, the Knicks. Tom Thibodeau's stubborn and he's set in his ways. So the rotation minutes, he's saying he has to earn them. I don't know why, when he's younger than a lot of these guys and debatably better.
Yeah, I don't really get that either.
I mean, he's a 6'8" wingman. I mean, that's beneficial for a team that's looking for defense and potential scoring opportunities. I mean, even in his first bucket for the Knicks, he had a nice little reverse layup going down the baseline, and that was off
of a player with talent that the Knicks have never had.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we've never had like a wing who is like a Paul George type build. So he's really an interesting prospect. I just don't know what the plan is. I mean, maybe you just want to get off Kevin Knox, and you didn't think you were going to do anything with the draft pick.
Yeah, so but giving a actually
giving. They try to move Reddish for someone else next year, but
maybe
I don't know. I think that's actually the most interesting discussion around the deadline is if a move will be made to free up space for him, and if not, it's going to be real awkward in the Garden when the "we want Reddish" chants start, and Thibodeau's like, 5 minutes.
Yeah, he's just too damn stubborn. But if we're gonna be talking about guys that are stepping up too, I just realized because you did bring him up and I forgot. I should have looked it up. Round of applause for Mitchell Robinson.
Dude,
incredible, man. This dude. I mean, he's averaging what, like 12 and 10, let's say, for the past month and a half or so. But but like he's doing it in a good way. I mean, he's out muscling and out hustling people. He's out rebounding people. He's getting all these. He had 8 blocks against the Grizzlies the other day. Granted, in a loss, but
it looks like he put on all this weight in the off season to be able to bang down low. Pause.
yeah,
A lot of the bigger centers in the league,
yeah,
and it was kind of like a little tough for him. He was getting really winded, and I think he didn't play a lot last year, so I think he had to get his conditioning up into shape. Then it appears like he lost a little bit of weight, but he's not as small as last year. It's like now he's kind of like gotten used to his body frame being a little bit bigger now, and his conditioning is great, and he's been able to really like finish at the rim really well. We've even seen him take it off the dribble a couple times, like that Charlotte game, which was sick. And then, we watched him get an offensive rebound and then put the ball on the floor and lay it back up to show sort of his versatility, creating on his own. I'm not saying he has this innate ability that hasn't been tapped into, but, him looking a bit more comfortable out there to do stuff on his own, I think he's really valuable. I think that also begs an interesting question of what you got to do in terms of moving pieces around with these contracts, because I think you got to pay him. I want to extend Mitch. I think we drafted him, and I think he's not a Miles Turner who could stretch the floor, but like his defensive presence is it's so important to what this team is trying to do. I mean, 8 blocks against Memphis.
Yeah,
that's absurd, man. The last guy to have a double-double and 8 blocks was Ewing.
Yeah,
and he's the only other Knick to do that.
31 years ago.
Yeah, and I mean Robinson, I think he just passed Marcus Camby in the blocks list. Like, he's a Knick, man. He's one of those Knicks centers already who's breaking these records. I want him here for the long term. I think he's got great chemistry with RJ, with Quickly, with Grimes, with the young guys, with Obi. And I think if we don't pay him, I think someone else will. This summer. I don't know who that'll be, but someone else will. And I don't want it to be like Charlotte,
Mm-hmm. If he went to Charlotte, wow. But
but they need a guy like him. And I think I think it'll work out like Knicks fans want, meaning I think we'll pay him and we'll get him at a reasonable price. I think if you're negotiating with his agent, you have to express the injury concerns a bit. But then at the same time, if he's got a killer agent, the agent's going to pivot and say, well, I can get more money from this team that isn't worried about that at all, when that is a reasonable concern. So, he's been playing awesome, and he's been so important to, this team. And I'm excited to see how he finishes out the season for sure.
Yeah, man, for sure. Because, like you said, the injury-plagued seasons actually have really been annoying. He never really seemed to show any signs of development or growth in his game, and this year he has. I mean, like you mentioned, he's getting offensive boards, and actually he's able to put the ball back in rather than just going up and getting his hands swatted away. He's gotten stronger. He's gotten more focused and confident in himself. And those dribble moves, off the dribble moves, like, it's not something that we see him do all the time. So seeing that even is nice. Like, the fact that he could blow by somebody off of a one dribble as a 7'2", 270-pound man is incredible for me. And, my thoughts on Mitchell Robinson have been staggered since we got him. I loved him his rookie year. Then he was like kind of meh. Then he was good. Then he was Then he gets hurt. And I'm like, look, I'm over it. I wanted him gone, to be perfectly honest. I was cool with including him in trade offers because he does have talent. But if we could get better talent for the now, especially for my expectations of this team, I was down for it. But yeah, as of right now, I'm cool with extending Mitch. I would hope that we get him at a decent price point because, with the cap space how it is right now, to commit too much money to a center that's averaging like 9 per game maybe for his career, it's just a little weird because he's not like Jared Allen. Jared Allen got his bag because he could get you like 15 a game and also be a lockdown defensive stud. But maybe Mitch finally is developing into that now that he's got weight on him. And realistically, watching him this year, it puts into perspective how much we could have used him last year in that Hawks series. I think he would have been the stopper. He would have been the catalyst for keeping the Knicks alive in a lot of those games. I mean,
if we have him last year, I think the series goes to 7 games regardless of how he play. I really do.
Yeah, no, And I think Mitch would have been a big part of it for sure. Like now it's put into clear perspective for me that that's true. Um, and despite his early season antics this year with the Instagram stories and saying this and that, now like I don't really care about it. He's putting his money where his mouth is, I guess. He's proving himself is essentially all I'm trying to get at, and I'm happy for it. I'm here to extend Mitch. I love his effort. Honestly, sometimes he looks like he's the only guy who has effort and cares about winning.
Agreed.
So
And
it's
the Garden
pretty.
loves him, you know.
Yeah, it's pretty sick, and I would love to, like you said, he passed Marcus Camby in such a brief stint. He's met past Marcus Camby for blocks.
In his fourth season.
So
Yeah.
I would like to keep him around, build up on that Knicks legacy for him. Same with RJ. I would like to get Obi out there too, keep Obi going. So Quentin Grimes, who's a future DPOY MVP, by the way.
Yeah.
You know,
that guy, man, I love Grimes.
Bro, 25th pick back-to-back years, and both of them feel like steals. Quickly's had his slumps as well, but Grimes right now is also looking pretty potentially elite for like the type of role he plays.
Yeah. 3D, 3 and D, as Zach Lowe alluded to in one of his articles.
Yeah, I didn't read it, but I like that.
Ability, you know?
Yeah, for sure. He could put the ball on the court, ball on the floor. We saw it a little bit in the summer league, and I think even in like the post draft tape, like they draft the pick and then show his tape from college. And I didn't read that Zach Lowe article, but I am happy that Zach Lowe shouted him out because Zach Lowe's like a very respected writer in the NBA space. So his 10 things I hate and don't hate, whatever the fuck that title is. The fact that he brought Quentin Grimes up of all people is actually pretty sick because that means that he's getting the recognition that I think Knicks fans want from him. And honestly, I would love to see him start personally, but that would require a whole bunch of logistics that we just discussed. So yeah, I mean, we talked about the trade deadline, right? And all these guys that are picking shit up, building on themselves and improving. So to, I guess, close this off as a discussion, what do you think the rest of the season outlook is? We have one of the hardest schedules on the books. We really can't seem to put together a win streak. Guys are inconsistent. We got the drama surrounding the team right now. Trade deadline is yet to pass. But let's say they stand pat. Like, what's the rest of the season outlook in your eyes?
I think based on what we're able to build last year, maybe I'm stupid for this, but I really do think it's possible. I don't think we fall out of the plan. I think we're gonna crack the plan. I think our talent is enough to do so. I think Washington, although they're very skilled, I think they have a bit of chemistry issues. There's murmurs of guys not liking Dinwiddie in the locker room, Bradley Beal not being the best leader, and you can't have Kyle Kuzma be your best guy every night. And I think they sort of fall a little bit. I think on this road trip where we go, there's Lakers, Denver, Utah, and Golden State. If we go 2-2 in this trip, it's like okay, like we were able to beat one of these good teams. As good as the other teams are, like that we got to play on this trip. Like we often do play competitively with good teams. Yes, we've gotten blown out when Denver comes to town and by the Bucks like early on, but generally we play well against these good teams, and I think we'll be getting Derrick Rose back, which I do think will be a big help after the All-Star break, and I could see us post our All-Star break to playoffs. If we can go above 500, then I think we'll crack the plan. Because the East is actually too close. I mean, if we're like 4.5 games out of the 6th seed from Brooklyn and we're 1 game out of the play-in, like teams can come and go at any time. I mean, we saw the Hawks like playing horribly and then they just beat the Suns the other night. Like they handled them. So the outlook is, I think play-in, and I think a play-in matchup, honestly, with Atlanta or Boston. I hate to say it, but it's going to be one. And I think no matter what, where it's inevitable we're seeing Boston at some point. Like they're just the vibe around the matchups that we've had with them this year. I think we played them all 4 times already, based on that buzzer beater and then the opening night games. Like that's just
48 had 41 against them, bro.
Yeah, exactly. Like everything is just leading up to like a play-in tournament matchup with them.
I'd live for that, to be honest.
So I think that would be exciting. The top 6 seed I just don't know. Like the top 6 teams, including Cleveland and including dysfunctional Brooklyn, they're just a little bit of a tier above where we're playing now. I have to be realistic.
Yeah, no.
I think with Rose coming back, I think it's possible Randall's game picks up. I think the All-Star break will be great because that's 9 days off for these guys. Randall doesn't got to go to the All-Star break. Though Obi is going to go to the dunk contest. That's it. I think that'll actually be good for guys. And again, D Rose coming back. Maybe Noel can play a bit more consistently. Yeah, I like playing. I don't know if it's going to be the 7 or 8 playing or the 9 or 10. Either way, it's the plan. So, it's not a place you really want to be in either way.
Yeah.
But,
I mean,
I think it's our fate. Like, I think, jumping into a 7-game series right now, we're not built to win that, but, like, we can maybe,
fight our way into one.
Yeah, I mean, if we're in the 7 or 8 and we lose that game, you got another chance. If you're in the 9 or 10, your back's against the wall.
Mm-hmm.
You got to win 2 to get in.
Yeah.
So I could see us, maybe winning some of those. I don't know, but I don't see us missing the playoffs. If we do, then I think the offseason, I think there's going to be change. Yeah, I think I know I talked about 2023 earlier, but I think if we don't make the play-in at all this year,
well, it would be preemptive. Yeah, they're preemptively still preparing for 2023.
Yeah, I think they're going to go full youth movement because, what other direction are you going to go in? You didn't even make you're not even in the top 10 seeds. It's like,
yeah. After such a big year, and that's what's kind of funny is because even last year you thought play-in was the most realistic outcome for the Knicks, and then they get to the 4th seed and it's like, oh shit, okay. So, but yeah, I mean, like to be the 4th seed and then to fall out so bad that you end up in the play-in or don't. I mean, if they get the play-in, I'm still cool with it. Because if they do play at Boston, I do like that matchup. If they do play Atlanta, I like to run it back and see if Mitch does make that change like we're talking about.
Yeah.
So, but ultimately missing play-ins that would be a really big bummer.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if I had to put my money on it, right? Because now that sports betting is legal in New York, could I see the Knicks making like some push to maybe be like 500 by the end of the year? Yes.
What would that be? 40.
It'd be 41 and 41. That's a big ask, to be perfectly honest. But
that's 17 more wins.
Yeah, but and then only losing 12. So
yeah,
or no, 13, losing 30. So 17 and 13 rest of season, but with a tough schedule, who knows? Maybe I could see them being like 30 something and 40 something, which isn't really the end of the world. But if it happens to make them jump up and just skate by at the play-in, then I'm cool with it. I haven't really checked the standings of late. I think the winning records are pretty much 1-8 at this point. So, but yeah, man, tough season. I think they could maybe pick something up though. I think Rose coming back will be a change. Hopefully that All-Star break does like really open some eyes. All the team will be together and they could just kind of reassess and reacclimate and kind of just understand each other better. So these things happen. Like you said, this game is a game of runs, and it's not just in game; it's throughout the season. If you go into a bad slump, you gather together and you come together and you figure out like what do we got to do.
It's all about managing expectations with this team because I think
True.
last year they did so well. Had this amazing run, the 4 seed, and then like coming out to play to start the year, they thought they were better than they actually were, and they were losing all these lazy games like the Magic and like Cleveland and like stuff like that. And now I think like the expectations are weighing not only on Randall, but like I think everyone. I think even the young guys too to be like, look, like they got humbled really quick. And that affects all teams. Like look at Memphis right now, like 36 and 18. Like they could win 40 games before they have 20 losses, and that's like a rule of thumb that constitutes like a real championship contender. If Memphis can win like 56 games this year or maybe 60 games, like, I don't know how far they can go in the playoffs, but the fact is they're probably going to get a top seed. And with this Memphis team, they have too much chemistry for this to really happen. And they share the ball so well that I don't see them like faltering or having a regression year next year, but to just use them as an example, if they underperform next year now, their expectations now are set at like, okay, this is a team that can win 50 plus games and go to the conference finals. That's their expectation now. So if they don't do that next year, it's going to be a disappointment. When maybe not. Maybe they're still a young team with development, and just this season you have certain anomalies which help them get to that area. That's sort of what's happening with the Knicks. Like, you know, we had a really good defense last year. We had a really good momentum. We had, Rose playing great, Randall playing great. And yes, that's probably going to be Randall's best season of his career, probably.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're held to that standard when maybe that's not possible. You know, like we're not at this standard like the Suns now, where it's like they're a championship team all the time. But they were only a championship team for the last 2 years. Yeah. So, like, in terms of reacting to how we do, it's all about managing our expectations, I think.
Yeah. I mean,
tough.
Fans tend to have an unfair judgment on things. So
yeah, but it's like, how? Of course, we're gonna think that we're a playoff team again after last year. Like, these expectations are understandable, but when you kind of come back to earth, you're like, okay, like, kind of makes sense that like.
Yeah, I mean, I think. I think the team's overall performance in that series against Atlanta was kind of eye-opening. But at the same time, like for me, like I was writing it off as, look, that was the team's first ever postseason. There was only like 4 guys on the team that have seen a postseason before the fact. And, you know, they did what they could. Randall had like an all-time worst performance of his career. But it's like, all right, first postseason, you know, the spotlight was on him. 18,000 fans for the first time all year last year. You know, you gotta hope he comes back. And then now we have what we have. And maybe this team really just wasn't. It was an anomaly or an aberration, however it's pronounced. So, yeah, like you said, setting the expectations as the fan base is a little tough because you want better, but then you get worse and you're disappointed. But it's kind of your own fault for thinking, you know, like we all knew that the East got better this year too. So
yeah,
but
man, it's not a COVID season this year. You know, I do think with guys Randall, like, you know, you're putting up buckets where there's not a lot of fans in the arena. That's similar to the being in the gym, man. You know?
It was similar to the bubble in a way too.
If I'm an NBA player, I'm like getting my trainer to blast loud crowd noise as I practice. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to replicate the game in practice. But again, I'm not in the NBA, so what do I?
It's true. Neither am I. I wish I was, because I could use a nice $20 million a year right now.
Oh, that's a fact.
But yeah, bro. So I think we could agree then that, you know, this team's a little rough, but I'm not writing them off just yet.
I'm a fan, man. You know, I'd rather see us in the playoffs than not. But you know, if we do miss the play-in, it's like, what are we gonna get? Like the 12th seed, and then like get like the 9th pick. It's like, come on, man. How many times are we gonna do this? Like, you know, at that point, it's like you got to go all in on the youth movement.
Mm-hmm.
Or not, like,
or make a bigger move to like really bring this team.
You know, it's like we can't hover in the middle here and like fall to the lottery and pick top 3 and just get RJ. You know, that's it. Like there has to be, you know.
Maybe we get another frozen envelope type deal soon.
That'd be great. And then we get a chair up our home or something, you know. But
gotta get a unicorn again. Yeah. But yeah, man. You know, it's been a rough ride, but happy to still be a Knicks fan. Yeah, I mean, I spend enough money on the memorabilia to commit to it. So. Yeah. All right. So we'll call it there then. Awesome. Let's go Knicks. Hopefully they could dig themselves out of this trench that they have.
Yeah. Good to check in. You know, hopefully we come into LA. I saw RJ on his Instagram. He was in the gym late last night, which is a good sign. So hopefully he drops a 30-piece on Westbrook's head.
Oh my God, love it.
You know, it's always a show at the crypt, at the crypto.com arena. So should be an interesting one tonight. So just love to get a win coming off that Memphis loss. I think guys really wanted to beat Memphis. One thing I did like was that just a last thought was, we all know the Randall controversy of last game. He went over to the Grizzlies bench to confront Desmond Bane, but then there's a play preceding that where Bane like aggressively grabbed the ball out of Quickly's hands at a timeout. And I did like that out of Randall. He was sticking up for Quickly. You know, that's why he did that. And that's more of what you want to see.
Yeah, like, it looked a lot worse than before the fact that you mentioned.
That's more that you want to see. Not these lazy, like, selfish fouls where, like, text where he's, like, pushing away Fournier and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to see that, man. I want to see you get teed up if you're sticking up for your boys, for your teammate. Like, be a team player, bro. You can shoot 1 of 20, but stick up for your boys. Play with maximum effort. That's all you need to do for me to love and respect you as a fan. When those things don't happen, my fandom goes out the window. It's plain and simple, man. It's effort. Like, I don't hate you for playing poorly this year. I don't feel any ill will towards you for doing that. I feel some disdain at you not putting in effort and not sticking up for your teammates. It's those two things.
Yeah, he's bipolar, man. He's like, last year was the high energy, like high up tempo. I'm here to put this team on my back type of behavior.
If you're feeling negative about things, take it out on the other team, man.
Yeah.
Don't do it to your own team.
Yeah, for sure.
That's my whole thing.
No, yeah, 100%.
I really do.
It's all about adjustments in this league, and if they can adjust, this team is instantly better than they were for the first half.
Yeah.
So
I agree. Yeah.
So yeah, man. All right.
Great podding with you, brother.
Great pod indeed. Thanks for stopping by as always. Yeah, sure. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe. I have an OnlyFans.
Subscribe your boys, please. Read our articles. We're putting in time and work.
Yeah, man. Yeah, Nick has actually been writing more than I have, to be perfectly honest, which I also appreciate. I never thank you enough for it. So,
bro, we're in this together, man. But yeah, please like, subscribe, everything, read, share. My passion for this team knows no bounds. So
not even close.
That's it. And we'll pay for it when we're in our 50s and we got to go to a cardiologist. But for now, we're in our 20s, so life is too short.
Absolutely. Yeah. Peace out, y'all. Rambles gone.